Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first ever episode of UPE Podcast. We're launching a new series for UPE members by UPE members. Each episode will have an amazing guest on the air as they share their stories, experiences, and insights for all our listeners' pleasure. My name is Littaua, and I'll be your host today. Today, I'm joined with Michael Lee, an esteemed UPE UCLA alumni. Michael, it's great to have you here. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm good, thanks.
So this whole coronavirus situation is not the most ideal, you would say, right?
No, but yeah, there's ups and downs, but you adjust to it, and you. Personally, I'm pretty lucky to be at a company at Microsoft that's been super resilient, and work is still continuing from home, and at least that part's the same. And then outside of work, I'm on my own, but yeah, it's taking some adjusting.
That's cool. Awesome. So Michael, after graduating from UCLA, what did you end up doing? Just go a little more detail after that.
After UCLA?
Yeah.
Sure. So I think my whole onboarding process was a bit interesting, just the whole story. So let's see. I interviewed with at Microsoft with a Windows networking team.
Mm-hmm.
That was maybe like fall of the senior year, and then I signed in December, and then in around around April or June, I called my manager saying, "Hey, I got some work visa stuff approved. Like, let's talk more." And then he was like, "Okay, I'll call you tomorrow." And then during the call, he was like, "Yeah, so I forgot to tell you 2 months ago. I actually moved you to a different team. You're
Wow.
on the Edge team." And so Edge being the Microsoft Edge browser, which is on Windows 10.
Mm-hmm.
And then the first day I started was September 2018, and so at that point it was still like like there was no news yet about the new Microsoft Edge, and it was still like the old Microsoft Edge with like the blue E logo. And my manager basically broke the news like during that lunch of like, "Hey, we're actually switching our entire code base to Chromium." Like this is a completely new thing, and then it was like, wow, that's really cool.
So
And
before or after you got hired that they were like, "Oh, we're switching to Chromium, surprise."
it was my very first day at work, like pretty much after I met my manager in person at lunch.
That was kind of a bombshell in that moment. You would say.
Yeah. Because at that point I was like, I don't really know what to expect. Um, you know, yeah. It's like I didn't know what to expect, and then suddenly like I go in and it's like, oh, we're in the middle of a huge change right now. And honestly, like I think the change kind of kept going. So when I first started working, we were doing performance work. So this was just kind of like browser tests of say like how fast does the browser run on like these specific like graphics, drawing these kind of things. And then 3 weeks in, um, a bunch of Edge also just the term we use is reorged or like reorganized. It's just kind of like teams just get shuffled around, and then we became the install and update team. So
Okay.
I went from doing like browser tests to like our team completely went to doing the whole like first install, download, and auto update experience. So and that was 3 weeks after I started. So it was yet another big change. But at least luckily since then um, I haven't had any like major changes in that. Although a few weeks ago Cortana came up. uh, Just a few weeks ago, our team actually became big enough that we split our team into two. So we had like a new lead come in, and I'm part of now just specifically install team, which is whereas a lot of the old team is staying on the update side.
Okay.
So I guess it just shows that like a lot of time it's not uncommon that you might like change teams, or like your team just gets moved around or and stuff like that.
So on that note, actually, you're throwing out all these teams and all these orgs and product names.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, when they think companies, it's like, oh, Microsoft. They just have these products, and then they just have people working under these products. But obviously, as a company, they're a lot more, some would say, bureaucratic or organized in that sense, and have like
Hmm.
all these like different structures. So could you explain like what the structure is, at least corporate wise, like what's on the bottom all the way to the top, just so people have a clear picture?
Sure. So it goes something like you have your own direct team. So our team was a bit big, so we were going past like 10 or like 12 engineers, which is why we split into two small teams.
Mm-hmm.
And then our team, our yeah. So that's just for engineering. So our and then that team has one lead manager who kind of just like who kind of tells everyone what to do. And then on the program manager side, there's like PMs who like decide like the direction. I guess they decide like the what of like what features do we build,
Mm-hmm.
um, and they're kind of under a separate structure, but you work with them pretty regularly. Um, so and then from that team, like above that is usually what we that's what we call our skip level manager. So they kind of manage like I guess a division of related teams. So an install and update is under what's called continuous shipping. So there are other teams under continuous shipping that are specific to uh, just around releasing Edge, because Edge right now releases very often, especially with our preview channels. So
Mm-hmm.
there are other teams under continuous shipping that do like various data, so like various data things like uh, the teams that manage how does the data on the Edge browser get to our servers, and then on the server side, like what processing of the data do we need to do? Uh, and then above from that is just the higher, basically the Edge leadership. So one level above my skip is just Edge leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Above Edge leadership is what we call the CVP. I think that stands for Chief VP, and and so you have I think you at that level you have like a bunch of different products under under one CVP. So for us, we recently joined this organization that includes Bing, MSN, and then now Edge is part of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think it goes maybe about a few levels higher from that, which is like very general high up Microsoft. So uh, we're in a big organization called Experiences and Devices. Maybe you heard about that.
Yeah,
And I
actually,
think
enough when I was interning, I was technically under experiences and devices. Uh,
right.
I was
Yeah.
under.
So I think. Oh yeah. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I was under experience and devices, and then my team was the my analytics product team. I don't really know from there like what the actual like CVP role was, but he had like all these AI and substrate uh, products under him.
Okay. I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, so experiences devices is of like one of basically one of the biggest organizations in Microsoft, and that includes I think a lot of Windows. I think Windows is kind of split into two, so it's a bit confusing, but it includes a lot of Windows, especially I think the hardware side like Surface, and then other products related to Windows like Office and then us.
It's funny you say that because usually when people think Microsoft, like forward facing, I would say like experiences and devices is generally what people see or think of Microsoft. Obviously, there's other organizations like Xbox or
Yeah,
gaming, and then Microsoft AI, their
yeah,
research. Yeah. So it's
yeah, and
you're definitely in
then
the face of Microsoft, right?
yeah, like Azure is probably one of the one of the bigger orgs, right? Like I think it's and that's under what's called cloud and AI, and
Hmm.
then it's a bit confusing because a lot of Windows is under cloud and AI as well. But it is what it is.
Whatever makes it easier for them, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So actually, because it's such a big company, sometimes there's usually difficulty in defining a company culture. So how would you define the company culture of Microsoft?
Defining the company culture. Let's see. So I think culture definitely it would probably depend from organization to organization as well. Like obviously from like a very high level, like so our CTO Satya is uh I think uh, I think he does a pretty good job of communicating with us from time to time. So we have monthly Q and A's with Satya where we get to ask him anything, and he gives progress on various things like uh, business updates and also culture as well. And then I think yeah, throughout the various chains of management, you kind of have uh, different. Yeah, I think there is one cohesive culture around like uh, stuff like inclusion and diversity, and but I think the most day to day is with will be within your product team. So for me, under the edge team, like they do I guess they specifically will talk about, hey, uh, this is the culture we want for to best make our product, and for us that's been okay. Cortana is acting up again. uh, so under edge team, like I guess we've talked about a very specific culture of uh, getting more used to shipping quickly. So edge used to be very tied to Windows, and that means like like slow like steady releases, but then that means like it's hard to update really quickly when you have like any bugs and stuff like that. And so shifting to Chromium was a big change, not only in I guess the product itself, but also getting used to like how do we I guess change our mindsets to be able to just like ship a product every day. So we have we have a canary build that ships every day, and
Hmm.
that means like so many of our processes have to be different, and so much of our teamwork also has to be different.
So no longer
So I think
so no longer you're
yeah,
dependent under Windows. Like for example, as you were saying, if Windows was having problems, effectively Edge or Internet Explorer back in the day was having problems. But now, because you're your own separate, uh, essentially product, like you're not dependent on anyone else. Everything's like dependent on you, right?
yeah, correct. Well, there's some caveats because we still depend, like right now, we depend on the operating system to do some specific things with, especially transferring from old edge to new edge. But
Hmm.
yeah, a lot of like for the most part, the shift has been like to releasing much faster and I guess being more aggressive and listening to feedback and all of that.
No, that's really awesome. I remember when I
Yeah.
talked to older employees at the company, um, one common problem because it wasn't necessarily a cohesive culture is teams would often undercut each other. For example, one of my old mentors, he said he was building this like product for his team, and then once Satya came along, he found out another team was building the same exact thing, and they ended up axing his project after 5 years. Just because the other one just happened
Wow.
better. So it's definitely good to hear that things are have been and definitely are still changing around the company to make it a lot more unified. I don't know if you've ever seen that old graphic of it's different org charts for companies, and I always thought Microsoft's was the funniest because it would be the CEO on top, and then three different bubbles, representing the core orgs. And they're all pointing
Right.
at each other because they're all undercut and do things,
Oh, I've probably seen that. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it was definitely a reputation of being more siloed. So I think we're pretty lucky to have Satya now, where collaboration is um, a much bigger aspect. And yeah, actually, speaking of that, yeah, Edge has had some great partners, like just across the company. Like there's been so many partners that have helped us a lot with various things on our product, and it's really great to see. Like our slogan is like one Microsoft, and that's has been really true for us.
awesome. Now, as someone who recently just came into the company, would you say it feels younger now than even maybe when you joined, or what your initial impressions were, or does it still have that like kind of corporate feel that more established and older companies generally have?
Right. I would say, yeah, it is a big company, so I'm sure it would vary. Like I feel like I feel like I'm really lucky to be on a team that is releasing so aggressively and like working on something that is basically a completely new product because the code base is essentially uh, new and we didn't retain like much from our old code base, I think. Um, so I think the at least for my team, like the spirit feel like does feel um, I guess younger in terms of I guess for young versus old um, in terms of actual age, then I think in general it feels like it is the demographic still kind of skews older, but there are also a lot of young new grads like me or like people in their late 20s working on the team. But I think it is something that is going to vary from team to team or organization to organization because it is such a big company and after all.
Right, of course. Um, and then just kind of ending off on this note, um, what's your favorite place to go to or do on the Microsoft campus? Because I know they've definitely made a lot of improvements over the last few years.
Favorite place? Honestly, I think uh, so the buildings that we are in, they're one of the older buildings.
Which building
So
are
when
you
I
at?
go to oh, I'm in building 113 if you've been. It's kind of
Just in my
yeah.
personal opinion, East Campus is not my favorite. I'm more of a West Campus person.
Yeah, so like, if you've been to the Commons, it's kind of like south of that.
Mhm.
But anyway, I was saying like the set of buildings like I'm around are a bit old. Like there's not really like much in them. I think they might have used to be from another company. And so anytime I go to any of the new Microsoft buildings, it's honestly like, whoa, we have cool buildings. I didn't know this. like it's kind of a relief. But yeah, a lot of parts of campus are pretty nice. I've been to the tree houses, which are pretty nice.
Those
There
are
are some nice trails and like forests around, so that's really cool. Um, but yeah, campus is really big, and there definitely are some nice spots like that. Yeah,
absolutely. Just to put it out there for you guys, my favorite place is the tree houses. I remember as an intern myself, uh, once in a while, if I just need like a still want to work but a break, I would literally just grab my work laptop and just head into a tree house and start coding in there. I've never really
nice.
seen anything like that before. Uh, so if you ever intern at Microsoft, go to building 30, 31, 32, head into a tree house. So, moving on, going on to the vein of your UCLA experience, what was probably the biggest adjustment or challenge you would say to leaving UCLA?
From leaving UCLA, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Definitely the biggest part was just becoming independent. I think, yeah, in terms of work life, I feel like it wasn't too difficult it wasn't as difficult to adjust, but I think just like outside of work, just on a personal level, so I'm in a studio apartment right now, like living on my own, and like I hadn't done that before. Like at UCLA, I always had roommates, and I feel like in college in general, like I always felt like I wanted to be around people because like you're always at classes, you're always doing homework, or even if you're doing homework, you're probably talking to your classmates about doing homework and whatnot, or you're hanging out with friends, and it's just obviously a very natural natural social place where when you're around so many of your peers. And definitely like moving to a new city where I barely knew anyone, and where I guess the demographics at work are a lot different. It was pretty tough at first to, I guess, to adjust to the new social life and to living on my own.
So in that sense, like, how did you end up, I guess, making that transition or coping? Like, what um, things would you recommend possibly doing to make it easier for people who are also in the same situation?
Sure. So I think a big part of what I did was uh, I found that I really had to be proactive about I think going to certain events where I could meet other peers, other new grads, and also kind of just finding my interests, and uh, and then so like I guess whatever interest you have, especially if it's if it's any physical activity, like I guess don't be afraid to go out and do that, and you might meet other people who are around your age and you consistently go. So I guess one thing that happened to me was like at the work events I went to, like I recognized some people, and that um, I end up being friends with because I happened to bump into them at the bouldering gym. So bouldering is pretty big in Seattle, or at least it was before the pandemic. And and I just happened to recognize them from work events, and it turns out they're regulars at the bouldering gym, and so I just started going at the same time that they did. And I mean, bouldering is a pretty social activity in itself because like you're like talking a lot about how you climb a specific route, what techniques you do and all that. So I think it does. Yeah, I think it did take me a lot of like proactiveness to really seek that out, but it is definitely worth it.
For sure. Uh, Going a little back into your UCLA experience, what were some of the classes you took here in which computer science was like your favorite?
My favorite, let's see. It's been a while. It's been like it's gonna be almost 2 years now in June.
Wow.
Um, my favorite. So, I hadn't really prepped this. I did want to note that like some of the more theoretical computer science classes, like the upper division classes, uh, are actually useful when you get into work, especially at a place like Microsoft. Like, when I was in college, like I had a feeling like, these concepts seem important, but I'm not sure if they will, like, like I don't know how much I'm going to use them. And then
Mhm.
it turns out I end up using a lot of them. So, for example, like operating systems class, like like I work under Windows, like that stuff is definitely super important for like, you know, file system stuff. Like I work on an installer, like it interacts with the file system a lot.
Hmm.
Networking is also, I think, I mean, not just my product, but like so many products. It's good to know like just the gist, like high level, like, you know, um, what are HTTP requests? Like what can go wrong with them? How do you deal with that? And then like databases as well. Actually, I didn't have much database. I didn't have much like data science experience. Like I just knew some SQL and I had taken the class. And then my manager was like, "Hey, we need someone to start working on our telemetry, and you know, why don't you give it a go?" And like, since I knew SQL, it was pretty natural to pick up the database language that we had and start making charts from that. So I think, I guess the point that I wanted to make was that like a lot of these theoretical classes, um, it's hard to see like how they're useful at first, but it is good to have uh, that broad knowledge because it is pretty likely at some point that you'll use some of that high level knowledge.
Hmm. Uh, can you think of a time though when you knew something that you would have known if you hadn't been exposed to that class whatsoever?
Something so something that I wouldn't have known if I hadn't taken
Yeah, like for
a class at
uh,
UCLA.
yeah,
Sure. So this is a tough one.
we're asking the hard questions here.
Yeah. Yeah. So my team deals a lot with uh, like intricacies around networks because we have so our product kind of like downloads the entire installer and kind of like a compressed version of the Edge browser and then installs that. And
Hmm.
so we do a lot of work around uh, what are our network errors this week, and so uh, we do kind of dive deep into like I don't personally do it as much, but it's still good to know. Like we dive pretty deep into like I guess the details around the specific like network transactions, like what goes on in the post request, like what are we receiving in the network headers, and I think a lot of those details um, I probably did learn in my networking class when we were learning about like HTTP and all that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, going into the industry though, do you have any critiques of the CS or engineering curriculum and maybe some recommendations how they can make it better now that you're an alumni?
Right. I think I think around the time I graduated, I think they added a new Python intro class. Is that correct?
I believe so. I believe it's a lower div. I'd have to check on that though.
Okay. Yeah, I think that was a pretty good step towards getting into computer science a bit easier
Hmm.
because I know like the very first day of like the first CS class, CS31, it's either like everyone is super confused by C++ syntax, or the people who learned it before, like they already know it, like it's nothing to them.
Right.
So I think that can be pretty polarizing, and I'm glad that the department made some steps to make that intro a bit easier. So yeah, that's the first thing I thought of.
So just to kind of sum that up, the classes to make it the shift easier into CS31 rather than here's CS31, either you know it or you don't, and you have to work harder
Yeah,
because of it.
yeah, for sure.
Do you have any other recommendations as well? Because of course we're all ears here.
Right. Hmm. I know there's also been there's been people who've raised the question of like are can there be more classes around more, I guess, practical subjects like app development, maybe like web development, and I think there is some validity in that because like I mean I guess for my job, like I'm not specifically working on apps or anything like that, but
Mm,
obviously a big part of the industry is. And I think it would be worth exploring having some kind of class for more, I guess, the practical side of development, like development practices. Uh, I know there is the software engineering class, which I've done, uh, but I think even that is a bit theoretical. It was a lot of design patterns, which is useful, but
mm,
I think um, yeah, I think this yeah, like a more practical class that's centered around like developing, getting even like getting more used to uh doing Git in a group project because working with Git is definitely really important. There's something around that is definitely worth exploring
for
versus just like 5 or 10 classes about theory and like automata.
no, of course. Don't get me wrong, fun classes, but definitely a lot of theory and work behind it. It almost feels like a math class, I would say.
Yeah, yeah.
So, summing up your whole UCLA experience, how do you feel the university gave you in terms of opportunities, CS culture, and then ended up preparing you for the real world?
Sure. So I think in terms of class, yeah. So I think the classes had, I guess, gave me most of the theory that I use and like a lot of knowledge. I think, I guess as I was saying about like I'm the more practical side. I think a lot of my development experience probably came more from uh, from stuff I did outside classes. So
Hmm.
uh, I did some like sysadmin stuff and also some web development for UCLA Student Media, which is like the parent of the Daily Bruin and some other media organizations. And so I did a lot of web development there, and I think um, and also just stuff on like Python servers and stuff like that. And I think that's and like that being on my resume, I think that really probably shifted uh, where I guess Microsoft decided to place me in the end. So uh, I think that extracurricular was definitely part of what uh, influenced my CS work going forward.
Hmm.
And obviously, there's stuff like UPE. Uh, well, in terms of UPE, I wasn't like I was a bit involved, but it was just like a bit of web dev and going to events.
Hmm.
Um, and then of course there's also other CS events. The CS company fairs definitely helped, although and that is like where first end up interviewing with Microsoft. Although I don't know how much has changed since I graduated, but obviously the experience is it's a bit stressful when like there's so many people lining up and
No, of
and
course.
it's super crowded and whatnot.
Um, so backtracking a little bit, do you have
Sure.
any funny stories to share about classes or professors at UCLA? Ones that really stick out of your mind.
Um, I think we had a I don't know about funny stories, but I remember I did a graphics class, which is pretty interesting because my professor Scott Friedman was uh, it was an interesting class because, like, for example, like instead of a midterm, you could have done a hackathon where you just we just like made a, a few some graphics app, like
Hmm.
some web graphics app within a few hours. Um, so yeah, I think I definitely took the hackathon option of that, and I mean it was a pretty interesting few hours, and I think yeah, I think doing that probably got me more marks than I would have on a midterm. That
That's
was
actually
pretty
the first I've
interesting.
heard is a professor offering a hackathon instead of a midterm. Very, very interesting
Yeah,
grading style for sure.
yeah. I would say, I mean, Eggert lectures are always pretty interesting.
How many
Plus,
times
I
survivor?
mean, one moment. Hmm?
How many times survivor are you of Eggert?
I did 111 with Eggert. I did 33 with Eggert, the first time he taught it in a decade.
Wow.
Yeah, and yeah, I remember now, like the first day was on the very first day, like he didn't realize that we didn't know C. And so he was writing stuff with like printf, and like the syntax with printf is a lot different than the C++ print C++ is cout.
Right,
And
right.
then he was talking about like binary, like not like without having even explained binary. it was it was a real doozy for some students, and I felt bad.
Oh, I could imagine, definitely. Any
Yeah.
other Eggert classes or just those two?
Uh, I probably took more, but let me think. 111. No, I didn't take 131 with him. I feel like I I feel like I took more, but I'm blanking right now. I hadn't really like looked at my class list
Just trying to
before
get
doing
it out of your
this.
memory at this point.
Yeah. I just remember I think there's 111 class or so. Like he had us do an integral, which was like the one time we used calculus, like outside of calculus class. And it was something about it was something about writing to a disk, and I just remember the result ended up being like a third. That's all. I just remember that moment,
For
and I
sure.
don't know how we got there. Yeah.
Um, and then finally, kind of even more summing up your UCLA experience, if you could take your freshman self and then talk to your senior self, what would you tell them? Like standing from the point where you are now as a software developer.
Mm-hmm. The software developer. Um,
So what would you tell your
I
freshman self
think
and then your senior self?
freshman self. Um, let's see. Freshman. I would For my freshman self, I'd say from from a software development point, I'd definitely say I would. I guess I know that I ended up doing a lot of different CS opportunities and extracurriculars and stuff, but I definitely would have encouraged myself to keep doing that. But at the same time, also, I guess when I had free time to uh, to use it to do, I guess, to do things that I would normally do, and then and also go out and explore LA more, because
Sure.
I know some quarters I definitely felt like I focused so much on classwork and recruiting that I barely went off campus and outside Westwood.
It's the Westwood fallacy.
So yeah, yeah. So I think that would be the main thing, and also, I mean, also I wish I could have developed a bit more independence earlier. I
Mhm.
know, like, I think third year was like when I and me and other people started moving off campus, and even moving off campus into uh, you know, even moving off campus into like my own apartment with roommates was a big transition, because you're no longer on the same floor as all your friends, and you're no longer um, just constantly around people. You're still around your roommates, but it's definitely not the same feeling. And I wish I I guess I wish I would have been more mentally okay with that. Like obviously that's something that would have taken time to grow into, but I think I could have saved a lot of hardship if I'd been better about that earlier.
Absolutely.
As for my senior self, um, I think kind of along the same lines. Like, don't I guess I would try to tell myself, I would tell myself like, hey, it's okay to like spend time on your own, like to live on your own and to feel lonely at times, and 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 to keep being proactive about reaching out to people and just discovering new activities that you like doing.
Absolutely. And so now we're going to switch into some viewer questions that were submitted prior to the podcast. The first
Nice.
was has a little background too. So now, because of this COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of Americans are out of work. Unemployment numbers are surpassing millions. So for those in non-essential positions but have the ability to work from home, um, everything is now exclusive with remote coordination for products and how you conduct your work. So it's actually a two-part question here. How do you feel about the shift to remote work? And second, has this impacted you or your team's productivity at all?
Sure. Um, so I guess just thoughts on about remote work in general
Uh,
first. Yeah,
yeah, just how you generally feel about working from home for, I don't know, at least a month so far.
sure. So the good part is, you know, you can still, like, at least for us, we can still work from home pretty well. So what we do is like we have our build machines like just on, like they're just, I mean, they're still in at Microsoft, but like they're just on, and we remote into them, and you can do the same work. Um, so at least that part isn't really impacted. I think obviously the difference is in um, it's a different work environment. Again, you're not around anyone really, um, and I think it does affect productivity a bit. I think I'm lucky that I don't have too many distractions, whereas for someone who has like family and kids, like they have to manage like how they have to homeschool it essentially, and I think that's definitely a lot more distracting. So when I want to focus, I find that I actually can like focus pretty well.
Mhm.
In terms of motivation, it definitely depends from person to person. Like some days you might not be motivated, especially like when you like get up out of bed and like you're just sitting at home. And yeah, I do feel a bit restless sometimes, and it is something I'm working through. I think one thing one thing that I kind of have felt is like like there is like a bit of um there is a bit of feeling that like, oh, like how productive should I be if like everyone else like say like has family to take care of, and I try to be productive as I can, but at the same time, like I think in the mornings what helps me, I guess, like what helps me I guess just like wake me up and like keep me interested at home is I've been looking at more investing recently, and like just like looking at stock markets in the morning.
That's definitely fun, I would say. It's like gambling in a way.
Yeah, a bit. So I think I think it is tough. I think you can adjust to it, and I think I have pretty well. I think yeah, overall productivity is a bit lower, but we still get work done. So in the end, it's not too bad. Yeah. And I think again, I would say like I feel so I feel so much more grateful now to be at a company that can like be resilient during these times. So it's
Absolutely.
good.
Our next viewer question is, do you have any conspiracy theories about Microsoft, UCLA, or Paul Eggert?
Conspiracy theories about UCLA, Microsoft, or Paul Eggert. I don't know. I don't really think of conspiracy theories.
So
Um,
if you do need one, there is one
uh,
I've heard about Microsoft when I was an intern there. Uh, what they were talking about is if you walk around the Microsoft campus, you don't see any pigeons whatsoever, right? And the theory
okay.
goes is that the reason there's no pigeons at Microsoft is because Microsoft pays the government enough money to guarantee that the government surveillance pigeons don't spy around the Microsoft. Uh,
Interesting.
so in turn, Microsoft is able to keep everything secure on campus and free of government surveillance by collaborating with them, ironically.
Interesting. To
um,
be fair, I don't know if like I live on the east side, like not too far from Microsoft, and I'm looking outside right now. Like I feel like I see pigeons or even like around the east side much. Probably close to the water for sure. Not around. I don't think not even around like where I live much. Yeah,
Interesting.
that's interesting though. Yeah,
Got to think outside the box. That's what some people got to do.
yeah.
Uh, so our next viewer question is, how did UP affect the person you are today?
How did UP affect the person I am? Uh, I mean, okay, I wasn't. I hate to say it, but like I wasn't super involved in UP to be honest. But at least the career fair was nice. The UP career fair was nice, and yeah, I mean that was definitely helpful. Um, but yeah, I'm sorry to say like I wasn't honestly too involved with UP other than like I was on the team and I did some work around the website. I did a bit of tutoring. Um, I did, yeah, I did I think there's that, I think there's those hours where we like help people with interview questions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as a whole, I don't know how much you can say it's gonna change me as a person.
We might have to edit this question out. um,
Yeah.
and then the final viewer question we have is, do you just have any general advice how to navigate this whole coronavirus situation? What have you been doing to keep yourself sane, happy, and healthy?
Sure. So I think along the lines of like what I was saying about personal development, I think like I have a pretty restless personality, so it's helped me a lot to just keep thinking about like new things to try. Like this podcast has been great, yeah, for one. Um, but yeah, like different things been trying include like been doing dance as my cardio, and trying some filmmaking. What else? I think just keeping active in general. Like I bought a mat and some weights. And so I try to keep active every day. Like I think even me like I'm on my own in the studio apartment and um, I still find things to do. And I think I'm lucky that like this whole thing, like obviously it's bad that it happened, but I'm lucky that I started kind of like the personal development process of like figuring out what my interests are before this all happened. And obviously like the the whole situation did also force me to start, doing more different things.
Hmm.
So I think that's really helped me a lot. I know for some people, they they want to do more productive stuff like that, but they find that they haven't been able to. But I think, yeah, it really depends from person to person. Like, I think, do what's best for your mental health, of course.
Absolutely. I mean, everyone knows themselves the best most.
Hmm.
Um, and then to end this off, we're going to go into our lightning round segment. These are very short answer or yes or no questions. So yeah, take your sip of water. Ready to go?
Yeah,
All right. Do you have any pets?
no, not really been a pet person.
Name the first hobby you will do once social distancing measures are lifted.
Go back to the gym.
Goldfish or Cheez-Its?
Cheez-Its.
Tesla, yes or no?
Maybe, I'm not sure. Reconsider it.
Best bathrooms on the UCLA campus?
Ooh, probably like the nice places. Like, where's a nice place? I bet the business school has nice ones. But like, but like, I think the hotel had nice ones.
Absolutely.
But but yeah, I mean, a lot of the older buildings are no bueno for bathrooms.
Same question, best bathrooms on campus, but wrong answers only.
Bolter's pretty bad.
I can definitely agree.
Specifically Bolter. Ackerman, Kirchhoff, not great either.
Beefwood or wooden?
Be fit or wooden. When I think it depends where I was. If I was on the hill, be fit. If I was on campus, just doing stuff, then wooden.
All right. East Coast or West Coast?
West Coast for sure. I mean, it's where I've been for the past 5, 6 years now.
Favorite dining hall?
Favorite dining hall. I don't know if I had a favorite. I mean, I liked various things about different ones. I went to the Nev, even Covell. I went to a bunch. Like even after I went off campus, B play I went sometimes. If I had to choose a favorite, uh, maybe between the Nev or Covell. Sure.
I can respect that. Your top choice for Munchies food in Westwood?
Munchies food. Munchies food.
You're just craving something
Yeah.
really bad, and you're like, I have to eat this right now. Where would you go in Westwood?
Oh man, I hope there's these places are. I think they're still open. I went to BB Bop a lot, and yeah, I think I went there a lot actually. Yeah, yeah. I
Awesome.
missed I missed that kind of like build your own bowl, but like Asian style.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we don't. I don't have anything like that near me, and if I did, I'd probably go there so often.
I wouldn't blame you whatsoever. And then last question, favorite memory at UCLA?
Favorite memory. Let's see. I guess I'd probably say like I was in a relationship for 3 years, so just a lot of that was that's the first thing that came to my mind. So
Good to hear. Well,
yeah,
Michael, it's definitely been a pleasure and amazing to have you on the show today. Do you have
yeah.
any last words for our viewers?
Last words. Hope you're all staying safe and don't forget your mental health. Whatever you need to do for it, and be sure you have like friends or someone you can talk to openly because I feel like that's helped me a lot throughout um, the past while, especially now.
That's definitely good to hear.
Yeah,
Thank you. Uh,
yeah.
thank you so much for your
Like
time.
as guys, yeah. Or I guess I just want to say like as guys, like it is hard. I feel like it is harder for guys to talk about openly about stuff like mental health and emotions and feelings. So, and it does take a while to find those close friends and peers that you feel comfortable talking about with. And I definitely felt like I struggled with that a bit in college too. So, you know, I hope for every guy out there that you find friends that help you through that.
Very good words. I couldn't agree more. Again, thank you so much for your time,
Yeah.
sharing your perspectives.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you all for watching our first ever episode of the UPE podcast. We'll be having more episodes in the future, so watch out for those when they are released. Please remember to stay safe, stay healthy, and wash your hands for 20 seconds. I was your host, Alex Littaua. Keep the grind. See you all.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.